Thank you for joining us on day two. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I want to make sure I cover that. I know we have publishers from all over attending and really appreciate your time. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Rebecca Seger, who's our VP of Institutional Participation and Strategic Partnerships. Came over to JSTOR last year, was at Oxford University Press for 20 years. And I've been lucky enough to have an opportunity to work with her and get some knowledge from her around her understanding of publishing and working with, I'm sure, many of you in the past. And just a tremendous opportunity to have her coming in, giving us some update and talking through some of the great successes that we've been having here within her outreach team. And she'll be joined by Karen McEwen, who's the Director of Product and Marketing, and Barbara Chin, who's our Director of Journals, who will help with the Q&A and moderation. And we're going to now focus over on providing sales and marketing updates for archive collections. So turn it over to you, Rebecca.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that introduction. Again, as I was introduced, I'm Rebecca Seger, and I'm going to talk with you today about archive collections and our 2020 performance. And give you a brief review of the current market conditions and challenges and our future strategies. Thank you for joining us today. So I'll give you a brief overview of our 2020 participation figures. In 2019, we had 11,604 libraries participating in the JSTOR archive collections. We've seen 1.8% growth in participation this year. And that has largely been driven by secondary schools, where we've seen 41% of the total number of new participants, 250 from secondary schools. Domestic institutions, a new 192 new participants, and international 157. In terms of withdrawals, which is also kind of known as cancellations in the community, we have seen a 17% increase in the number of withdrawals. However, that said, it is still representative of a very small part of our revenue. We actually often see a lot higher withdrawals from the secondary schools community, which is not surprising. So we've seen that increase from 204 institutions in 2019 to 239 in the 2020 cycle. So a few highlights of the 2020 archive participation. Again, secondary schools, which we've seen tremendous amount of growth. A large part of that is related to an expanded agreement with our secondary schools agent, who covers all countries outside of the US. We've seen this year a 20% growth in the number of new schools that have joined and into participating in the JSTOR collection. With a lot of activity, a lot of marketing activity and outreach by our agent. That's been in place for several years, but we've expanded the relationship and they have done a fantastic job on our behalf. Highlight of the year is the international consortia, which renew throughout the course of the year. Obviously, it's been a challenging environment since late January, early February in other parts of the world. But I'm very pleased to say that we were able to renew all of our major international consortia agreements throughout the year of 2020. And some of our agreements don't renew until the August timeframe. So this is really a very positive development in a very challenging environment. Our renewal rates, we're expecting to see that to be very similar to prior years, and it's between 98 to 98.5% for the full year 2020, which as we've said and we'll continue to say, is incredibly challenging environment for us. But we've been able to retain the vast majority of our business, and we haven't seen a significant decline. Though we expect 2021 to not behave similarly. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Another highlight is the one-time payment conversion model that we introduced over the last year or so. This has been an increasingly popular choice. It's an increased investment by the libraries to reduce their annual costs at the institution and preserve a revenue stream for a long time for the publishers and for JSTOR. They invest, and the primary driver is to reduce the annual ongoing expenditure. The libraries have secured their JSTOR subscription for the long run, which is exactly what they feel there's a value in JSTOR, that they don't want to have it put at risk, which is fantastic. And it differs. This model differs a little bit in what we typically see in one-time payment, which is money is earned immediately. We actually spread the money over the lifetime of the purchase, so that there is no change in the value for this year, and it continues on for many, many years. I just wanted to give you a highlight of usage. I know you had some high-level usage information in the presentations yesterday. But as many of you know, we've had initiatives here at JSTOR related to COVID-19, and that has contributed to significant usage growth across our journals and books. And this conversation is related to journals today. Journal usage grew around 10% when factoring in the COVID-19 usage, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. But from 2018 at 155 million uses, 2019 158, we surpassed 160 million uses before the COVID-19 initiative. With the COVID-19 initiative, again, this is through the end of August, and these numbers have grown since then. It was over 14 million uses of the expanded access collection, and for a total of 174 million, and nearly 10% growth in usage. So this has been fantastic. It's really been a great way to support our community. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute in detail. So let's talk about the challenges and the impact of COVID-19 on JSTOR, on the community, and on the publishers. In late February and March, we got together when we first started hearing about closures of schools in Italy and China we first started thinking about ways we could help support the global community. And then we started to get a few requests in the US market for institutions that were planning for the possible closure of their institutions and how we could support them. So we built a crisis team and we identified the ways we could assist the library community and the end user community. There was going to be a lack of physical access to collections. We needed to support faculty and students moving to remote learning and teaching instantly. Were there things that we could do to facilitate that access? There was a closure of public libraries, the physical buildings, and we had many institutions that had purchased access without remote access enabled, and just general remote access challenges that, certainly in other in non-US parts of the world were even greater challenges than we had ever seen before, with entire communities moving remote and not being prepared in advance for doing so. So between the time period of March 12th through March 18th, we developed and launched an entire support program. This is in no small way a reflection of the support that the publishing community gave to us during this time. We needed to work together to enable this access to happen, and we're incredibly grateful for the support we had that enabled this to happen. And I'll talk a little bit about what we've done in that time. So in March, we began offering an expanded journal, primary source, and thematic collection access. So all of our participating institutions that have signed license agreements with us, that have purchased collections, we provided access to unsubscribed collections. So if an institution had 15 of our collections, we allowed them access to the remaining collections that they had not yet subscribed to. And this has been incredibly well received. We also created a 34,000 title ebook collection, again, available to our participants. We initially started only with non-books participants, feeling like those were the institutions that might need the most help quickly. And it is an intensive process for us to kind of get these accounts set up. So we elected to support, help those who had nothing first. And then we expanded it quickly to all participants. The other immediate steps we took was we had been in the process of building a public health collection, but had not yet finalized it. And we had already digitized and had available 26 public health journals. We made those, thanks to the support of the community, freely accessible during this time. We felt it is in all of our interest to get this public health information available as quickly as possible. We also editorially selected articles, over 6,000, that had any reference to COVID and coronavirus, and made them also freely available. We increased our Register and Read program for unaffiliated scholars and readers from 6 articles to 100 per month. Which really helps those who had a lot of walk-in access and would go into institutions and access their content, but were physically unable and prevented from doing so. We made access enhancements, which we'll talk a little bit more about, to ease the remote access challenges. We did a lot of work with our JSTOR daily team, and I'll show you an example later, but we had a whole syllabus devoted to pandemics that really helped exposed content within JSTOR for the wider community. And also as an organization, Ithaca S&R created a number of reports on the crisis and impact on higher education, which have really come in incredibly helpful to many institutions around the world struggling with how to support their community and how to continue educating during this crisis. In July, we continued our work, and we made the decision to expand the archive access through the calendar year end. We did this with a thoughtful approach, reviewing the current landscape to see what was happening with the crisis. We felt, as we've seen borne out, that the physical location restrictions were still in place. There was so much influx around the world related to the crisis that being able to expand this access and continue supporting the community during this challenging time was the next step in our process. We extended the books through the end of August. Initially, again, that was announced to be ending June 30th. We extended it through the end of August, August 30th being the last working day of the month. But we also understood that that was not a program that could last forever, that books publishers were feeling the economic crisis just as much as libraries were. It was understood and easy to communicate with the libraries, and they were grateful for the extra time that we had tacked on to it to help them get through the summer and plan for the fall. The steps we put into place, the access, the assisting with remote access, we knew that was meeting an immediate need, but we also knew that there was a looming economic crisis that was going to be felt quickly in the 20 to 21 academic year and beyond. And the programs that we put in place were incredibly helpful in the moment, but that there was a greater and additional crisis that was going to be felt, which was the economic crisis. So working with our board, working with our library advisory group, and speaking with the community, we instituted a fee relief program. We also, at the same time, announced that we would not have a price increase for 3 years, because again, we have this time period where we know it's going to be incredibly challenging, and we wanted the library community to understand that even if we see greater attrition than years before, we weren't going to try to bring that back through increasing prices. We've never increased our prices, and we're not going to start now. But we felt it was important to make that statement public. We also, at that point, extended free access to the Art Store product for JSTOR participants that have signed license agreements on file. Again, it was another step. We started to get feedback that lack of access to art in person, whether it's museums, galleries, you name it, they felt that this could be an additional support mechanism, so we expanded that. And then we have just recently announced that, again, through numerous conversations with our library participants, with our board of trustees, and given the current state of the crisis related to COVID, we have expanded archive access and art store access through another semester. This is our final extension. And we'll talk a little bit about how we'll use that information that will, again, help all of us in the long run and help our community get through and weather the ongoing situation with COVID. One of the most used pages on our About site has been this wonderful page that our marketing team has put together, our marketing and support team has put together to help institutions easily see all of the options available to them. We make it a point to share all of the open access titles, whether it's book or journals, and other freely available information. And it's been an enormous support to the institutions. So what is the demand and impact of these programs? We had 4,000 institutions around the world take advantage of one or more of these complementary access programs. Now, we actually had institutions choose to sign up. For those of you that have worked with libraries, they don't like to give trials to things that they're not sure they can buy. And we like to give libraries a choice about whether or not to add this temporary access. And they have done so in great numbers and in great geographical distribution. We have more than 10,000 institutions have used the journals and articles we made freely available. So 4,000 signed up for the access programs, but over 10,000 have used the other, all of the content that we made available, including that public health and the coronavirus related content that we made freely available. So as of now, we've had 23 million plus content accesses, and usage continues to grow. We've actually also had 1.9 million additional registrations for Register and Read in 2020. We haven't found that this has led to enormous downloads, and we're keeping an eye on the security of that. But it is, there is a need and a demand, and we're meeting it. So just a little bit more about that fee relief initiative. Again, in July, the Board of Trustees approved the establishment of a $4 million fund to help our participating libraries impacted. We elected to do a 3.5% or 5% fee relief for every participating higher education, secondary school, public library, and government nonprofit institution. Libraries will have 3 years. We issued this as a credit memo. This gave libraries control over how they use that fee relief. And that actually also lets us spread the cost out over a little bit of time. Libraries have 3 years to use this fee relief credit, so they can use it to apply it to this applies from their 2021 subscription cycle. They can use it to apply towards their renewal this year. They can use it to apply to renewal next year. If this current cycle is not the one they're worried about the most, they think the budget impact is going to be next year or the year after, we allow them to control when they'll use it. Again, the 3-year price freeze assures libraries that we're not looking to recoup this credit with an increase, that this is genuinely something that Ithaca and JSTOR are doing to support the community that supports us. We also didn't want to create a culture of negotiation. All libraries are impacted by this crisis. There is no institution that's not singularly impacted in some way. Some might have better financial support in the form of endowments, et cetera, but everyone is being impacted. And we didn't want to have an uncontrollable amount of requests for credits and discounts and savings. We wanted to help everyone. And we found a way that we could budget for that we could establish and put a ring around an amount that we could support that allowed us to help that wider community. And that they didn't feel like they had to come asking us for that. They were proactive in understanding that this was an issue that they're facing, that we feel their pain, others are feeling it, and here's how we can help the broad community. So that is how our program was shaped. We know there's likely to be wildly divergent needs, but we felt like the message of helping all was one that was really powerful. It showed the community that we understood the challenges that they're facing, and we're doing our best to support them. We will have, it will have an impact on our organization. We'll have cuts as well, as just like they do, but we feel like it's a sacrifice worth making to support the community. So just one more quick slide just to kind of show you how the usage of the expanded access programs has spread out amongst the different offerings that we've had. So the archives represented about 50% of the use, which is a significant amount of usage, of course. The books access, which again has stopped at the end of August, represented over 30%. And that is still with 2 additional months of usage of archives and the other content, which makes up the remaining 15%, which is the public health content and the freely available coronavirus-related articles. So really just a tremendous response and a grateful one from our communities. Just quickly, some of the other technical things that we were able to do to support, and you may have heard about some of this in the first day, to support remote learning and access, which was the most important thing that we could do, is enable our paying participants to use the content while they're in this crisis. We made improvements to browser pairing, to account pairing, Google Casa, to proxy linking, to the JSTOR account, and use of other features such as text analyzer. Our support team has dealt with an increased volume of requests, and also was able to just almost magically get those 4,000 institutions up and running within a week of us launching this program. They're dealing with a 40% increase on every single week in the number of requests for support. They manage a fantastic page, and there's many resources that we've made available during this time. So I'm not going to spend too much time on those technical details, but know that it wasn't just about making content available freely. It was about making sure that people could use it, and we focused our efforts where we thought we'd have the most impact. The marketing team also focused on meeting the most critical needs during this time period. We had an emphasis on all of the marketing that we're doing on remote teaching and access, whether it was on social media or if it was in email marketing or on the site. We really integrated, we had integrated marketing campaigns that really touched on and tried to help faculty, teaching and support librarians as well. We had overviews of functionality and use cases to help. We had some of the highest registrations we've ever had on our webinars, with over 2,500 faculty and librarian registrations, with nearly 1,000 live attendees and 400 additional views after our webinar on the remote teaching and learning with JSTOR. We have much higher engagement versus 2019 for all of our webinars in 2020. We've got very high interest topics, and so that shows that we're putting our efforts in the right places when doing these marketing led webinars. For our webinars, we've had really good attendance by librarians in the past, but what we've noticed is we are able to get more faculty engagement in the teaching focused webinars, which of course makes sense. But it's been a really positive development, and we've seen a lot of engagement with that in that channel. So the feedback here from participants is around the fee relief program. I think it really resonated, and the librarians the most important thing they were saying to us is thank you for being proactive. We are so appreciative that you understand what libraries' challenges are today, both in providing access and in the economic side. So this has been, very well received, and it continues to help us develop our relationships. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the outlook for 2021, challenges, risks, and opportunities. So all of the positive feedback aside, it is a really challenging environment. October 15th in the Chronicle of Higher Education, their quote here is that colleges and universities employed 337,000 fewer people in August compared to February. We can't hide from this. We can't pretend it's not happening. We know that this is going to be challenging year ahead for sure. So I kind of highlighted here what we feel are kind of the biggest challenges and risks to 2021. Obviously, number one is budget cuts. You're hearing anywhere from 5 to 50%. Just today, I heard about Uruguay is having a 65% reduction. This is going to leave even less money for recurring expenses. So that is a challenge. We expect reduced retention. We expect to see more attrition. We've been blessed with 98 to 98.5% attrition over the last several years, 98% renewal, excuse me, which is a very small attrition rate in comparison to other products that I've worked on in the past, even good, strong products. So, with less money, we expect to see more attrition. We see the potential for school closures and mergers. You're starting to see a little bit of that. There's talk in the Pennsylvania university system of merging that together. Reduced enrollments. There was, again, just this week, a report of the fall in freshman enrollment being about 10 to 15% this year. Hopefully it'll rebound, but obviously it's just too unpredictable, which is where it becomes a risk. And just in general, an unpredictable end to the crisis. When will a vaccine be out? When will we be able to return to normal? Will we be able to turn to normal? So that requires us to be very nimble and be able to respond, which I think we've done a good job in up until now to the fall, but there's just so much unpredictability out there that it remains a challenge for all of us. That said, there's still some opportunities. And we think that the programs we've put in place, the great relationship building, the support that we're giving the community will be something that helps us moving forward. We will have, for the first time ever, a full year of evidence and usage of archives. There'll be more evidence-based purchasing at the end of the free access, and indeed in between, even before the access ends, which is something we saw with books. I expect that we'll see some more collaboration between libraries and consortia in a really positive way. That they'll be purchasing together the things that they all need to support remote learning. I think we are feeling optimistic about some new participation in some of the international markets. South Korea, we've seen some positive feedback from, and there's other areas that we're continuing to expand into. Another project that we're working on is simplified pricing for non-core markets. And this is, outside of higher education, what are the ways in which we can increase participation and get rid of complexities? As the products have grown, we built in complexities that made sense at the time, but it's time to take a fresh look at that and see if there's ways we can help other types of institutions expand their access. All right, and now I'm going to give you a brief sales and marketing update. One of the really exponentially growing ways we're marketing the content, your content on JSTOR is JSTOR Daily, where news meets its scholarly match. This is a daily email and a website that now has over 400,000 readers a month. The articles are written by professionals and really are shared widely on social media. We have 40,000 Twitter followers for JSTOR Daily. And a lot of these, the daily stories are often picked up by major media. And you can see sort of the array of media that has picked up our stories this year. The example we're showing on institutional racism, which has been available for since May has had enormous reach throughout the U.S. And we're really excited about the way that this continues to grow and is a real amazing vehicle for driving users. It's actually getting picked up a lot by teachers and instructors now that they're using in the classroom. So it really helps get the word out and engages our users with the content and gets them exploring the site and really being able to see the range of content that JSTOR offers. Some of the other upcoming marketing and strategies and plans for the next year is, again, getting the most out of the expanded access, raising awareness of the expanded COVID content and tools and resources that we have available to us. We are continuing to work on remote access and instruction support with our webinars, as well as outbound marketing, raising awareness of the services to support remote access teaching and learning. And again, sort of levering the usage data from the expanded COVID access to demonstrate value and demand for unlicensed archive content. Those are the focus areas for our marketing strategies over the next 6 to 9 months. It's hard to really work further than that in the current landscape because it's just changing all the time. And on the sales side, our current sales strategies and the future developments, again, using that COVID usage as a driver for engagement with 4,000 institutions. We're going to be talking with them and sharing with them what's happening all along the way. And that will really help us build those relationships with these institutions and have good conversations around what they need the most. We are, again, we're going to have the expanded access for new participants, expanding the access for new participants in the first half of 2021. This is about bringing on new participants that are not currently eligible for the expanded access and doing as much outreach as we can around the world to institutions that are not yet participating in JSTOR with the being able to expand access to additional content beyond what they purchase in that first half. We've got a new role on the team, consortia account development in the US and Canada. That has not been a focus point of our efforts, although we have many relationships. Again, we see this as a way to fulfill our mission to help broaden access and in a sustainable method for the publisher and for the library. We are working on expanding our international relationships over the next 6 to 9 months. Again, we have existing agreements like in Turkey that we're adding new participants to for 2021. We're doing a great job in being part of the conversation with new consortia that's forming or new relationships. For example, I mentioned earlier South Korea. The CARIS Consortium is signed on for 2021 to take a couple of collections for the first time, and that will really expand the reach and access for the journal archive content. And looking forward to the new opportunities that will present. They're picking up, I think it's life sciences and perhaps another collection, but it'll be an excellent opportunity for us to build more relationships with the Korean institutions. And again, I mentioned it briefly, we're going to be rationalizing our pricing to reduce complexity. But in addition to sort of the non-core markets, we want to find new paths and pricing for additional collections that our institutions have been using in ways that are sustainable for the publishing partners and for libraries to help us sort of bring access to broaden the access to additional collections for the long run, not just for this expanded access period. So with that, I just want to thank you for your partnership. This year has been more important than ever that we work together to help support the community in ways that prove to be sustainable for you and for us and for the library community, and we appreciate the efforts you've made. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. As John mentioned, I'm Barb Ruchin. I'm Director of Journals at JSTOR. I've worked with many of you over the years. I'm happy to work with and interact with many more of you over the next couple of sessions. in these journal-focused sessions panels. Rebecca Seger now, and we're also going to be joined by Karen McEwen, who is Director of Product Marketing, and she can help answer any questions that you may have related to libraries, how we interact with them, and things that JSTOR is doing. Before we start, since you all know now some of the focuses that we've had, some of the concerns that we've had related to sales and marketing, we want to get a sense of you, publishers, and what your concerns are for yourself. So I want to start with a poll just to get a sense of this to help us answer some of the questions too. So let's just launch into the first poll. Or here it is. Okay, you should all see this question on your screen. What is your greatest concern impacting your revenues? So the choices here, subscription cancellations, lower licensing revenue, manuscript submissions, and ability to publish issues on time, and the shift away from print subscriptions and inability to mail and for libraries to receive them. That one's cut off a little bit, and very related to the last few months with COVID-19 impacting the mail. And then the last option is OA mandates and the shift of revenue to OA funding and away from subscription funding. As we give the publishers some time to answer this poll, Rebecca, I have a question from you, if you don't mind answering this while we wait. I've had some meetings with publishers already, and they've asked if we have any sense of 2021 renewals for any invoicing that we may have sent out already. Do you have a sense of what the pattern is going to be, what the trend is for 2021?
Yeah, so Mike, just anecdotally, I can, sure. We have sent renewal notifications out earlier than we normally do. And so far, the response has been along similar lines, which is great. Similar lines as in past years. So there's no really significant cancellations or withdrawals that we've heard of yet. And we've seen probably about a third of our January renewals already paid. So that's a good first indicator.
That's great, thank you. Okay, let's close the poll and see. So not surprising, the top concern for publishers for their own revenues is subscription cancellations at 62%. And a little surprising for me in some ways, I guess, or maybe not so surprising because we will have a session on OA, but second place is 37% is OA mandates and the shift of the revenue. Rebecca and Karen, you're talking to libraries a lot. Are they asking you a lot about OA and what we might be doing, or what publishers might be doing?
Generally speaking, I don't think I've gotten too much specific around it. I think, it's obviously focused more on manuscript submission. I think we just get kind of general questions about how we're approaching it. I don't know if Karen can speak about, all of the various OA marketing things that we've done.
I think there is definitely some interest in usage of that content for those, particularly people who may not be affiliated and have access to the subscriptions. And so we do have ways in product to search, for example, just on the open access content. So that has seen pretty good traction with usage for sure. And particularly as we've added more of the OA ebooks, there's been, interest in that.
Yeah. With revenues, the JSTOR revenue is part of your licensing revenue, and I just wanted to make a note to the publishers in case you missed the messages that we sent out as part of our COVID-19 relief package. We aren't just helping libraries; we are trying to help publishers as well. And what we're doing for 2020 revenues is that we're guaranteeing what your journals earned in 2019. So any, budgeting that you might have to do for 2020, if this isn't too late, you can just put in what your journals earned for 2019, and we hope that will, provide some help for you. So if we go to some of the questions that we received, we had, one question concerning attrition. So, Rebecca, if you could specify any specific regions where we have seen attrition.
There hasn't actually been anything specific. We were quite worried in the early part of the year about Italy. That was a very delayed 2019-2020 negotiation that all and payment and all that was resolved. There isn't. I think I had said in the recorded bit there about all major international consortia. We continue to have conversations with all consortia, and again, our attrition rates so far are holding up, and there's nothing in either those really big deals that are covering hundreds of institutions in sort of the more developed parts of the world, as well as in other smaller countries like Uruguay that I mentioned earlier. So nothing specific to report at this point for 2021.
One question that we received when publishers registered was what we are doing to expand access to journals and books in developing nations. So I don't know if you can spend, a couple of minutes to talk about our programs there.
Yeah, we do have an Access Initiative program, which offers either free or low cost access in parts of the world that are noted by the World Bank as developing countries, specifically Africa, but certainly other parts of the world. And in our review of pricing, we are looking to really manage that carefully and kind of work with various types of, and say this clearly, with like the World Bank initiative, reviewing that annually to make sure that we're really paying attention carefully as the economic crisis takes hold and we're watching other folks. But we do a lot of work in ensuring that we make our content available at prices that are manageable in the regions and managed carefully. So.
And I know we do a lot of marketing campaigns to reach those institutions so they are aware that we have these programs for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday we talked a lot about COVID-19 impacts, and we've already talked about that today. I want to launch our second poll, which is also related to COVID-19. Just again, getting a sense from the publishers, if you had to take any action, if you were in any place to take some action for COVID-19 initiatives with your content, did you offer any lower prices? Did you hold prices? Were you in a position to make content freely available to everyone? Fourth option is, did you waive fees for certain communities? And if you did take something on, but we didn't list these as options, please put them in Slack or the chat. We want to know what you were able to do. Maybe you can give us some ideas of what we can do next time, or not that there's a next time for a pandemic, but maybe still in this time. And Rebecca, you talked also about some of the impacts with staffing at higher education institutions. Has that impacted your ability to have relationships with libraries, to talk to them about JSTOR, about their subscriptions? Karen, has this impacted your ability to reach out to them in any of the communications we send out?
We so as far as the impact on the outreach team in general, there is a lot of furloughs happening out there, so we often have to wait, and the librarians are fairly stressed from those kinds of situations. So it definitely has had an impact on the frequency of contact, and we're all very patient with each other. But it certainly has changed. We're used to being in the library visiting. We really had to shift how we communicate, as we've all done. But it's delayed payments, it's delayed paperwork, that kind of thing. So that's really where we've seen the biggest impact. But again, patience and understanding has been the order of the day.
Great, thank you.
From a marketing standpoint, I think it's making sure that we are aligned with what is needed in the moment, and there certainly has been a lot of interest and aligned with a lot of need to serve remote access and teaching as that shift has happened. And so our marketing has shifted to be much more about getting word out about how some of the features as well as the content serve those needs well. And as Rebecca highlighted, we have been able to introduce some new capabilities with access and increase the content that we're making available. So I think that's been met with a lot of positives as well. And then just in terms of the tactical things that we're trying to do, we're finding, if we do a webinar, it's recorded. And so if the intended audience isn't able to be there live, then it's available to listen to when they, do have time. And we're trying to, meet those needs as well as people are shifting to not, working in a normal sense. So being much more flexible, I think, in how we're communicating.
Great, thank you. So the poll results are up. 70% of you have held prices and 62% made some content free to everyone. So two strategies that we also took as well. They seem to be working for us. Hopefully they will work for publishers as well. I think these strategies will help avoid any subscription cancellations. Just going back to the first concern that you had in that earlier poll. And as Rebecca said, patience and maybe some perseverance in trying to get in touch with libraries will help. One question that came in, if I could just find it, was about secondary schools and any content that they might be interested in. What are they asking about when they ask for JSTOR access?
Yeah, so the way we work with secondary schools is with a full package of the arts and sciences collections. And the reason for that is typically secondary schools have like one or two librarians, right? They don't necessarily have the same need to self-select individual subjects or individual packages. I think, before JSTOR was out there, secondary schools did not use this type of journal literature, scholarly journal literature at all. And the fact that we have over 3,000, almost 3,500 institutions worldwide using this type of content, it's an amazing thing. But it's not, you don't like to restrict the access because they don't even know what they need. And sorry if I'm not being very clear about this, but packaging up together is, I think, more useful for this community. Again, it's not a very well-funded community. This isn't scholarly journals are again something that are newish to them using that. And we see the value in the full collection for that community to be more important. Karen, I don't know if there's anything you can add to that. Sorry.
The only thing I would add is that it is, our engagement with that community has been, Rebecca, I think of the local school in the New York area who chose to come to the JSTOR offices because they used it so much, and their teacher, asked us to come visit, and we had a roundtable discussion with them, and the topics that they were exploring using JSTOR were just amazing. So I think it's, like Rebecca said, to assume what they might be interested in at that age and at the range that you see in high schools. I think having the all-encompassing package is definitely the right way to go. But we were very encouraged, and those are the kind of things that just really make you, feel that we're serving the community well in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, the information literacy and the trustworthiness of the content you find in JSTOR versus the free web or even other collections that are not as discerning or curated in the way that the JSTOR collections are. Like librarians, faculty, teachers know when they send their users to JSTOR, they're going to find trustworthy information, and that's where the exploration starts, and that's where they fall in love with the JSTOR platform and go on to further education and are able to, walk in there loving that platform, understanding it, understanding the value of that curation, and the quality of the content within.
I
And a
think we
lot
still
of
have.
teachers love JSTOR Daily as well. You mentioned that, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Karen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we still have Research Basics up, just to help as a guide, a Research Basics module, just to help sort of new researchers, new students doing scholarly research, to help them understand how to conduct a research project.
Yes, there are. We heavily use the LibGuides platform, which has some interactive capabilities that our education team built a really nice information literacy module that is aimed just at that, at teaching. And there's even like a teaching guide that can go along with that, and quizzes and things like that. So that's been really popular to help, teachers get their students off on the right foot, really.
So one question that came in related to libraries being remote or shut down, are they in a position to receive print? Do you know about that, about libraries, and if they're open, if they're sort of back to business as usual in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think
print issues.
Yeah, I think that's very varied, of course. Most of the librarians I speak to, there's some level of opening, but some libraries don't allow patrons in, some do. It's very institution by institution. I think that there's staff in libraries now, so they are coming in and fulfilling needs. But you do, where print is going to go, whether it's journals or books, what that's going to look like a year from now, I'm really not sure. I don't know if it'll return to where it is, or there's going to be some shift in that. I think the situation is just still so unpredictable. I know I said that several times in my presentation, but it is. But as far as I know, there are people in library buildings now able to receive materials.
That's good. I know for JSTOR and for any publishers who might still be sending us print, we work with vendors as well, and I think for any issues that you might be sending to us, we can process them. There was a period of time when maybe that wasn't so sure. But hopefully things will get back to some level of normalcy in the next couple of months for everyone, and especially our mailing system and postal system here. We are a couple of minutes away from time. I wanted to use the last couple of minutes to just give a couple of reminders for the publishers, but Rebecca and Karen, if you have any sort of closing statement you'd like to make.
Yeah, no, I think, again, I just want to thank you for the support of the expanded access programs during the course of this situation. I want you to understand that we value our relationships with the publishers extremely significantly. Without you, we wouldn't be here. As someone that's come from the publishing world, I've worked in it for 30 years. I understand the economics behind journals publishing, and our goal is to find sustainable ways for us to be able to provide an excellent service to the publishing community as well as to the library community. We're here for you. I am open to questions. You can feel free to email me at any time. Love to speak with you. Many of you I've worked with in the past, and just know that we're here to support each other, and we want to make it through this crisis and come out of it on the other side in a stronger way for you all. So with that, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking with some of you later during the book section.
Thank you, Rebecca. So, Karen, did you want to say anything?
No, I would just echo the thanks. You help make everything possible, and we certainly, it is all about the community and doing the right thing. So I think these are hard times, and really appreciate your support.
Okay, great. So this is the end of the session. Related to revenues, I just did want to say for the publishers, for anyone who may not have received your 2019 revenue sharing payment, if you're still waiting for a check to be sent, we do encourage you to switch over to wire payment so we can send that payment, and then the 2020 revenue sharing payment next year, we can send that wire and we can get that money to you right away. We have some inability to go into the office, cut, sign, send checks. So, you know, we want to give the money to you as fast as possible. So please opt for wire. We are going to break now for 30 minutes, but I hope many of the publishers will come back in half an hour to join us for the next session. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.